Larry Pollock and Luke Carroll coming to you from Underground Performance Gym, Underground Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep bringing new content and leave your comments below. So obviously we can answer your questions as well. Today we're going to talk about a hot topic, and that is coaches in the bodybuilding industry. One that's really hot is Matt Jansen right now, with everything that's going on with him. He's had been called out by several clients actually, and including Quintbeastwood. But we're gonna play you a little bit of clips from him, and then we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of what we think about the whole situation.
All right, so this was the video that started everything off. Quentin posted this 2-3 days ago, and ever since then, it's kind of just been an avalanche on Matt. So here's just a little clip of what they're talking about.
But, I really believed in and trusted my coach. So I did everything he said. And honestly, we made great results during that off season. My coach is Matt Jansen, or was Matt Jansen. I fired his ass because
All right, that's a bit. So there it is. Quentin was with Matt a couple years, and he didn't feel like the prep went the way he liked, and he competed, I want to say, back in May or June.
New York Pro.
Okay, so May. I think he got 6th there. Soft from the back.
And apparently he was 20 pounds lighter than his previous competition weight that he did 2 years earlier before starting with Matt. So instead of progressing, he actually regressed during that period of time. And he talks about how he had him eating like massive amounts of food, like hamburgers every day, trying to put on weight.
Yeah, he got up to 330 in the off season. I think he's 6'1", I want to say. So yeah, he's a big boy. 330 pounds is enormous. He was saying he had to start using a CPAP, all this stuff. So a lot of the guys, because I'm friends with a lot of the guys that Matt coaches or has been coaching, and they say that in the off season he's really good. They push where they're supposed to. They do a lot of health supplements, stuff like that. With Quentin seems like his biggest gripe was that he was nailing him with 2 hours of cardio a day, and a guy that size, that seems pretty high. And then he said that his drug stack wasn't too aggressive. He said he didn't use DNP. I know Matt does use it with some of his other guys. Maybe T3. What's your take on the situation, Larry?
Well, first of all, Boston Lloyd, Boston is known as being reckless with, high dosages and whatnot. But Boston actually was very knowledgeable about compounds and how they worked. I just didn't agree with the high dosages part. And obviously it didn't do him any good either. But he was really in the know of like different coaches, and Boston had some way of just like everybody. He knew what everybody's protocol was.
He was friends with a lot of people, and then also he hired a lot of these coaches. He would kind of like get their secrets. I think he hired Chad. I don't think he ever worked with Matt, but I know he knew people that worked with Matt.
But he'd seen Matt's protocols.
Yeah. So we actually got a video of him talking about one of Matt's protocols. I have it clipped to the spot right here if we want to watch it real quick.
Yeah, and there's actually one of Matt's regular training clients from a few years ago talked about how he really just like took his money and didn't do anything for him.
Here it is.
Hasn't done a good job with it at all. I've seen his program. I'm not impressed. The drugs are normal, but it's the guys like Clarita. It's the guys like Nick Walker that he pushes, because I posted one of Nick's cycles when he first got in the bodybuilding world. He was training a top amateur at the time who he could have been pro, this guy. And this guy went and he showed me the cycle that Matt had him on. I literally fainted. I posted it and people shit their brains. So this is when Matt was trying to get his name out. He got a hold of a guy that had amazing genetics. And the guy could have turned pro. He still holds a lot of money, but the guy could never come in shape. Matt sent him the cycle. I saw it from his email. I sent it to one of Matt's buddies. He didn't believe it. He's like, that's not from Matt. I'm like, dude, here's the email. That's from Matt's email. Dude, the cycle is crazy. It was like 3 grams of long ester test, another 1,000 milligrams of suspension, 100 mgs of D-ball, 100 mgs of anadrol, 3 grams or 2 grams of EQ, and like a gram of Deca.
And the GH was the same 12 there, or was it?
GH was like 10 to 12. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be what do you say? 3 grams of test, another gram of short ester, 700 a week of D-ball, 700 a week of anadrol, 2 grams of EQ, and then 1 gram of Deca. I mean, that's 3, 4, 54, 64, 74, 8,400 milligrams a week is what they're claiming right there.
That's a lot.
That's that's a serious amount of steroids.
That's a lot.
So
I want to talk about coaches and my experience and what I think. First of all, to be a good coach, you need to have a really good understanding of pharmacology and how the compounds work. You need to have a really good understanding of nutrition and how it's going to work, have a really good understanding of training, how it's going to work. And more importantly, you need to understand how all of these things fit together, because you can't just be good at one of it. You can't just like prescribe nutrition and a crappy drug cycle and crappy training and expect it to work.
Mm-hmm.
Everything works synergistically. And that's including other things like just lifestyle. Like, does a person work 100 hours a week, or are they getting 8 hours sleep at night, and all the different factors that go in. And then you have to be able to look at a person's metabolism and how they're responding and make adjustments. There's a lot of factors that go in. And the only way you learn this, in my opinion, is from experience with yourself and experience training other people. I started training people when I was a teenager, and there wasn't really trainers like we have today. There was no certification. Just I won contests, and a guy came up to me in the gym, said, "Can you get me ready for contest?" And so I did, and I kind of had him do what I did, and it worked, at least at the time. And then over years, I've worked with different people with different metabolisms. Some people need more cardio. Some people need no cardio. Some people need to eat more food. Some people less food. Some people, respond to different drugs differently. And if you don't have a really good understanding of this, then you just don't know what you're doing. And I think that most coaches probably don't, in my experience. I was trained by Nasser. He fucked me up.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about that. I was trained by Mike Sable. I mean, back in the day, yeah, he got me to win my first contest back in the day, but that's because, all we did back then was starve and do cardio and got shredded. And even though we lost a shit ton of muscle in the process, I was the only shredded person in the whole show. So of course I won.
Mm-hmm.
But
did a lot of guys not know how to get shredded back in the day? They just
all we did was just not eat.
Yeah.
Eat. Of course, you just don't eat and do cardio, but we did a lot of stupid things like, no salt, drinking distilled water. I mean, these things, like, we know now that that's like not a good idea.
Yeah.
Let's but so what you have here is some people. There's a lot of scam artists in this business. I'll just tell you straight out. People that claim to have knowledge, but they don't. And even some, like, even big pro bodybuilders, they're not good coaches because
genetics.
They just have, like, Victor Richards. Okay, he smoked pot all day long. He was a genetic freak. But do you think he knew anything about? He just knew eat a lot and lift weights and smoke pot and take some Deca. That's.
I mean, he probably was a hard worker, but he probably just didn't know.
No, he was not a hard worker. I used to train in the gym with him. He was a lazy fuck. He'd do a set, walk around for 10 minutes, bullshit, do another set, walk around for 10 minutes. And he just was that way.
There's some of those freaks out there for sure.
So, just going to the biggest dude in the gym and thinking, okay, well, he's the biggest dude in the gym, he might know something. Not necessarily. But again, it's just like, if I knew back when I was starting to compete what I know now, I would have been on Olympia stage. I'm not bragging or anything. I just know that. Just because I know, looking back on it, we just didn't know a lot back then. You know, we just took drugs, lifted heavy, starved, and that's what we knew to do.
Well, you guys were the pioneers of the science that we have now. You know,
Yeah.
you guys were trying new stuff, like you said, trying different stuff, and then that ended up not being having a better look. So over years, it just gets worked out. People don't do it anymore. And
so here's what happens. Your body only understands milligrams or grams, whatever it is. It only understands the amount of gear you're putting into it. So obviously, if you push more gear, you're going to respond more. So if you take somebody who already has pretty good genetics and they already lift pretty well, and you get them to eat a lot of food, and then you push a lot of gear, they're going to respond probably pretty well. But here's the thing, for a while, they're going to respond initially until their body starts rebelling against it. Because at some point, the body just doesn't want to accept all of that change. You know, you start becoming toxic, start having organ failure, things like this, or insulin insensitivity. All these things can happen. So what we've learned from experience is, in my opinion, it's better to take a little bit longer, put on muscle slower, depend more on the training and nutrition, and not depend so much on the gear. Can I take somebody and, like, a young guy who's got pretty good genetics and load up on a shit ton of gear and have them get big? Yeah. Will it work? Yeah. Is his look going to be good? No. I'll tell you, I have a training client. Well, not now because I dumped him, but you know who I'm talking about. I coached him to his first nationals, and he placed top 10 in his first nationals. Dude was shredded, peeled, everything. And then he decided to do it on his own. Took way more gear than I had him on, and sorry, I'm getting over this cold.
Larry got sick at the Olympia, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I got a nasty cold at the Olympia. I'm just getting over it.
What was the Olympia? This has been about 9 days ago.
A week.
Yeah.
Weeks.
No, it's over a week. I mean, you caught it on Saturday.
Yeah,
so it's been 8-9 days.
Yeah.
But
Austin got it with me, and he's
got pneumonia.
He's got pneumonia. He's checking in the hospital right now.
Hopefully he'll be back on the podcast next week.
So anyways, this kid went off decided to do it on his own thing because he didn't want to pay me. And I'm like, well, I'm just not going to keep training you for free. So he decided to do it on his own, and he got some bimbo coach, and he looked like shit. I'll just straight out. He came in looking like shit. He didn't even place in his local show for his qualifier. So even though he took twice as much gear as I had him on, it didn't work because he wasn't putting in the work in the gym, and obviously the diet wasn't on point, and whatever they had him doing, it just didn't work. So there's an art to this, and there's science, but there's an art, and the science is you have to understand the science of how the body works and the science behind the drugs, the science behind the nutrition. But the art is being able to look at the big picture and see how somebody's body's responding or not, and making adjustments. And if somebody's body's not responding the way you want it to, you need to be able to make those adjustments, and you need to learn somebody's body.
It sounds like that's the issue with what Matt did with Quinton is, you know, he was getting closer to the show. Same thing with Nick Walker, and they kind of weren't getting any better. And instead of saying, I think here's the problem with Matt. I think he gets genetic freaks. He's like a formula guy. He's got a formula, but I think if something happens with the athlete off that formula, like they're a high estrogenic or a, he doesn't necessarily know
You know what to do.
how to bring that in. That being said, he has brought in, Clarita. He's got multiple Arnold winners. He's got Brett Wilkin. He basically built Brett Wilkin. He's got all these athletes, Justin Shire, Clarita.
Let's back up.
But
Brett Wilkin last year had to drop out of competition because he had really bad intestinal problems.
yeah, but I mean,
he's again, you could push a lot of drugs and push a lot of food and get a lot of results until it's like driving your car 100 miles an hour until the wheels fall off. And when the wheels do fall off, then you don't know what to do.
He doesn't know how to fix it. Yeah, I think that might be the issue, and maybe complacency because he had his knee issue this year with the. Did you hear about that? The stem cells.
Mm.
Yeah, he got stem cells and he was allergic to them, and he had like a really bad reaction. He's been like battling some kind of terrible reaction for like 7-8 months.
Nick or
Matt Jansen.
Oh,
and so and he's got the kids.
he had stem cells in his knee.
Yeah, Matt had stem cells in his knee, so I think that complacency got him maybe this year, and I think maybe complacency gets him a lot of times. He's got raw. He's got big time athletes, and now we hear reports of saying his small time athletes are getting coached by his wife. So there's a lot of reports out there about Matt, getting distracted. So I think maybe that's an issue too, because I mean the people that do like him, people like I've been paying attention to all the guys. Justin Shire made a post, saying. Praising Matt. Brett Wilkin made a post praising Matt. Austin, Sean Clarita made a post praising Matt. So like all these guys that have been with him for years praised him as being maybe they're just jumping in because they're good friends with him and they don't want to see him get kind of dogpiled on right now. But it seems like he definitely did something wrong. Obviously with Nick Walker, obviously with Quinton. So he, maybe with Clarita was second in the world, but he did look like he maybe was a little smaller from last year.
A lot smaller.
Yeah, so I mean, he did still get second, but maybe that's just because he's so far ahead of first and second are so far ahead of third and fourth in the 212.
Yeah, but he was a lot smaller than last year.
Yeah. So and all these guys aren't with Matt anymore.
Since Beastwood came out with that video, all his top athletes have left him.
Well, I heard that he's
Nick quit, Clarita quit.
Yeah, but
Brett Wilkins quit.
He said that he basically is not coaching anymore
because they all quit.
Yeah,
they all quit. And I think everybody they were scared to be the first one to come out with it and say it. But let's look at something. Some people handpick their clients and they only work with like genetic elites.
Obviously you're going to look good.
I mean, you give me a Phil Heath.
Yeah.
Anybody could prep Phil Heath almost. If you know a little bit, you could probably prep Phil Heath because if he just eats fairly clean, trains fairly decently and takes a halfway decent cycle, he'll probably be freaking world champion.
Let me stir this pot a little bit. What about Samson Dauda?
Yeah, look at Samson. He was with Milos, and then he dropped Milos, and everybody said he was going to fall to shit. And now his wife's prepping him, and he wins Olympia. So
let's talk on that real quick before we talk about some other coaches. We were in person there at the Olympia, and you had. I think you had Hottie you had Derek after prejudging, and then you thought that Hottie was after finals. Neither of us had Samson. I will go out here and say kind of a hot take. Samson's conditioning is the worst conditioning we've had in a Mr. Olympia since 2019.
Agreed. 100%.
I think he's got the best structure out of maybe anybody in the top 10. Maybe Andrew's got better, maybe not. But I think that his conditioning was something, from the back especially, was something to be left desired. I've heard from his own admission that he didn't follow Milos's coaching to the T. He would do a Gatorade, do stuff off program as they were coming in. You know, he would carb up differently than what Milos had. Would that have made the difference to what his wife coaching did? I mean, maybe just his wife coaching, being there in person with him, saying, you know, making his meals, doing the thing is I mean, we can't say any different. She got him to a victory. She got him to 2 victories back to back. Won him the Olympia. But I just am curious to see, you know, I'd like to see his conditioning get better and better if she's this guru coach that people are praising her to be.
Well, first of all, I don't care what they say she is. In my mind, he won the Olympia, and I don't care. I'm going to get hate for this, but for political reasons. Because when I think of Mr. Olympia, they need to have it all.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have size, you need to have structure, but you need conditioning. You can't, like, Mr. Olympia should not be not peeled.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that he's big so he doesn't have to be peeled is ridiculous, because Ronnie Coleman was bigger than him and shredded to the bone. Dorian Yates was
Phil.
big and shredded. Phil was big and shredded. I mean, Mr. Olympia should be shredded. Brandon Curry won and he wasn't shredded, and he was criticized harshly for not being in condition. And why Sampson is being praised when he just wasn't in the best condition, I don't get it.
We're gonna get flamed online for this.
That's fine,
but
whatever.
I mean, I'm a Sampson fan. I've said years before he has the best structure. I'm a structure guy. I absolutely love his structure. He's enormous. I just think that we didn't see his best potential. Is what I'm saying.
I'm just saying, to win the Olympia, you need to have it all going on.
But I mean, obviously, also, you know, Hottie, peeled as he was maybe regressed from last year. Derek's legs were down from last year. The only standout really in the top 5 was Martin that made the jump. So, you know, where do they go if nobody's like got the whole package?
Honestly, Marty is the only one that had it all going on.
Yeah.
He had the size, he had the conditioning, he had the structure, he had everything.
Yeah. But anyway, let's jump back to coaches. You kind of wanted to talk about Chad a little bit. Maybe some of the stuff that you've seen his protocols.
So Chad is another one. He works with genetic elites for the most part. At least those are the ones you hear about. And, you know, he's pretty aggressive with the drugs. We all know that. It's no secret.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has a long resume of people with problems. When I mean health problems and death.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. So you have Flex Wheeler, kidney dialysis. You have Tom Prince, kidney dialysis, ended up dying from that. You have, what was the guy that won the Masters? Big dude, was it Don Youngblood? No.
Don Long?
No, it was a big white dude. He won Masters.
Oh.
And then he died right afterwards.
Is there something specific that he's doing? Is it diuretic use?
Well, Ronnie Coleman said it.
What?
He said at one Olympia, remember, he said whatever diuretic protocol he was on, he thought he was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
He told Chad he couldn't move. He told Chad he was going to go to the hospital. And Chad told him, no, don't go to the hospital. Drink a gallon of water. And he drank a gallon of water and laid in an ice bath all night.
Mm-hmm.
But he was ready to check himself into the hospital right before Olympia.
Jesus. What, do you know what Olympia that was?
I don't remember what year it was, but Ronnie talks about it openly online. So, yeah. I mean, there you have it. His top athlete was he thought he was going to check out. So,
yeah, I actually have a buddy of mine. I don't want to say his name, but he's a diabetic, and he's working with Chad this year. I want to say, I don't remember what show, but he was going into, leg cramps and going downhill fast. And actually my coach Phil ended up seeing him and got the right stuff into him to bring him back from the edge, and then he ended up going to finals. But yeah, I mean, just I don't know if it's coaches not knowing what they're doing or if it's you are competing at the highest level of this sport, and the highest level means the biggest, the most shredded, the most on the edge to do whatever it takes. You know, is that the issue? Is he knows whatever it is, but maybe he's doesn't know where the line is, and he's pushing people past the line of no return. I mean, in any sport, you're gonna find people that are gonna reach for the extreme.
It's simply this. You want to run your race car 200 miles an hour?
Yeah.
Will you win the race? Yes.
Will you die? Maybe.
Will you die if you keep
Possibly.
doing it? Probably yes.
Yeah.
So it's like basically there's a balance between health and winning.
Mm-hmm.
And for some coaches, winning is more important than the health.
For some athletes too.
And for the athletes, yeah, and this is not all on coaches because, like, look, if someone told me take 10 grams of gear in a week and 20 units of growth hormone a day and take all these diuretics, well, actually, Nasser did it to me, and I fucking listened to him like an idiot, and I destroyed myself.
Yeah.
And as it was happening, and I could see myself deteriorating right before my eyes, I kept doing it because he's like, you have to suffer. Suffering is a thing.
What you're saying right there is, I think, one of the things that these athletes is where these athletes come in, because these athletes are of this mindset is, I hired this coach. He knows what he's talking about, and if I just do exactly what he says, then I'm going to win. And then in retrospect, they all come out, oh, Quentin, I was doing too much cardio. Oh, I was doing, he put me on DNP, and I think it hurt my look. I mean, obviously, Monday Morning Quarterback is 2020, but, maybe going in, if you feel like you're going the wrong direction, like, hey, this is not right. So, I mean, there's some
look, I knew 2 weeks into training with Nasser that this was wrong for me. I knew. I'm like, this is just not right.
Yeah.
I feel like I went from like, I'm already ready to 7 weeks out. I'm ready to get on stage. I need to lose 5 pounds, maybe.
Yeah. He brought you down 20.
And then all of a sudden I'm like doing this high volume and massive amount of cardio and starving. 2 weeks into it, I'm like, I'm shrinking before my eyes, and I'm getting weaker. And I knew, but he was like, Flex Wheeler, when he went to the stage, he had to crawl to the stage. He couldn't stand up. And then, he was
Spartan attitude.
Yeah. And you have to suffer. And I've heard other coaches, you suffer, suffer, suffer. It's like, if you don't have any body fat left on you, what are you suffering for? What are you going to burn off? You're going to burn muscle.
Yeah.
And so, some people like, okay, this kid that I trained, I actually had him at one point doing an hour and a half of cardio a day and on 0 carbs. And he was still getting stronger in the gym. And we weren't taking a ton of gear, but so enough.
You're monitoring other other aspects.
But like literally with his metabolism, he didn't lose muscle. I literally, he was doing an hour and a half of cardio a day. This is right, talking like 3 weeks before a show. And he's still getting stronger. I kept his protein high enough. So, and his calories high enough and his fat's high enough. So he wasn't like a calorie deprived, but I had his carbs down to practically nothing almost. And he could do that. So some people you can push them that hard and they can still do it. And like I said, we weren't even on a ton of drugs. We were on like probably 1,500 milligrams total everything. But this guy does not lose muscle. He's got a slower metabolism. If I did that, I'd disappear in a week.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, where we were talking about Jansen maybe being complacent or maybe not knowing what to do when someone has a different metabolism than some of these other guys.
Well, what happens is, as you're dieting and you're taking clenbuterol and you're taking thyroid and you're taking more androgens and you're maybe taking some fat burners on top of that, like maybe some ECA stack, so you know, Himby or whatever the fuck else you're adding into there, and you end up with a metabolism like a freight train.
Yeah.
And Jay Cutler said at one point before some of his Olympians, he was eating 1,000 grams of carbs a day because his metabolism was like a freight train. It was just burning through. And Aceto was smart enough to know that, like, yeah, this guy can just, once his metabolism started, that freight train starts rolling down that track at 150 miles an hour, you know, it's just burning through calories. So now you got to add in the more food. And that's how I am. You know, I start dieting, and first of all, I got a fast metabolism anyways. But the more I diet, my metabolism goes faster, faster, faster. And then I have to actually eat more and more and more just to not burn muscle.
To lose more fat.
Yeah, because I don't even have fat
to
at that
preserve,
point.
Yeah, to preserve muscle.
Just to preserve muscle. I have to literally eat more and more calories just to hold on. And so you have these guys, they're eating all this food, and then they get on this diet, and they throw in, like I said, you got clenbuterol, you might have some amphetamines going on in there, you got androgens, all these things are cranking up your metabolism, and then you keep lowering the food, and the metabolism is still cranking, and then guess what happens? You start burning muscle for fuel. And that's where I think Matt Jansen doesn't get it. Once that freight train is rolling 1,000 miles an hour, you need to pull back.
Yeah.
You need to know when to pull back on the cardio, add in more food. You know, once you start seeing like things are going in the wrong direction, you need to pull back.
The thing I wonder with
hold on, let me say this. He said it in the Nick Ricker thing. We tried to push harder and it didn't work. Well, no shit. The freight train is going 150 miles an hour because you got nitrous oxide burning on all cylinders, and now you're going to try to push harder. So what do you think is going to happen? You're going to push yourself deeper into a hole. It's just like training. You know, there is such thing as overtraining, and it's not too hard to get there. So let's say you're overtrained. So now we're already overtrained. So now we're going to like double the training and double the cardio.
Step on the gas more.
Yeah. And then you're going to drive. It's like you back your car up and you drive it into a brick wall, and we back it up and drive it to a brick wall, and we keep doing it. And we're trying to get through that brick wall. Well, guess what? You have a little ball of mush and your car's in a wreck. It doesn't go through the brick wall. It's destroyed. You just destroyed your car.
Your body, yeah. And we've seen it a lot of times with guys dumping a lot of muscle. That's what's kind of tough about this mentality of no one's going to outwork me. I'm going to work harder. Because then some people will, well, if he's doing 2 hours, I'll do 3 hours. And then they end up just looking like you said, like mush because they overwork.
And
they don't know when to
I'm
pull back.
one for like, you know,
working hard,
whatever it takes.
Yeah, you're one for working hard, but sometimes whatever it takes is resting and eating more.
Sometimes whatever it takes means sleep and eat more food.
Yeah.
And take less drugs. Obviously, if you're already like metabolism is cranking at 1,000 miles an hour and you're going down the track, you need to pull back. You need to pull back and slow down that process. And that's where the art comes in. Knowing when to pull back, knowing when to slow down, knowing when to push. And
that's where a smart coach comes in. And
right.
I think that's like a lot of people's biggest gripe with Matt right now is that, you know, he didn't pull back Quentin what he should have. He didn't pull back Nick. You know, maybe he pushed too hard with Clarita, you know, so.
And I'll tell you why that happens. Okay. Number one, lack of knowledge. They know how to push, but they don't know when to pull back. Number two, it takes a lot of work. When I prep somebody for a show, especially at the end, I'm looking at them every day, sometimes multiple times a day. The last week, I'm like with them, looking at them multiple times a day, seeing how their body's responding. Going to the show, I go to the show with my client, and I'm like looking at them every 2 hours. Let's eat a little bit. Let's look at you in 2 hours, seeing how their body's responding, because things can change drastically in 2 hours. So it's like paying attention to detail. And the other thing is, I've seen this one too. Coaches have such a big ego. It's like, do what I say, don't ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
I want my clients involved in the process because I want feedback. Like my last client I just prepped, he said he really liked it because he felt like he was involved, because I kept asking him, how do you feel? How was your lifting today? And I looked at training videos of him lifting because he trained in a different gym. And I'm like, how do you feel? What is your weight? We're checking. And I kept getting feedback because I need that feedback from him.
And you're logging these things too to make sure that they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. And I'm taking and we're taking photos, every week all the way up to the prep. And then the last week I'm like practically with him every day. And I'm getting feedback. How do you feel? Are you tired? How's your energy? How was your strength in the gym? I kept asking him every time, how was your strength in the gym today? Because if your strength is up, even though you're dieting, you're probably not losing muscle. If you start getting weak in the gym, you got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just, it's paying attention to detail. And another thing is some coaches take on way too many clients.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know, like for preps, I maybe could do, if I had nothing else to do in life, 20 people.
Yeah.
In a prep. It's just if I literally did nothing else, because I have to put so much time into that person, just paying attention. It's like I'm doing the prep with them.
Mm-hmm.
to really understand what's going on. And so if you have 300 clients, don't tell me that you know what's going on with those 300 people.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Probably not. So, all right.
Anything you want to add to that?
I think that's pretty good. I mean, just vet your coach and maybe make sure they don't have too many clients when you go in, and ask them questions about their style and see if they can, whenever I'm working with clients, I'll send them like a picture of my logbook. I'll send them a picture of like maybe somebody else's nutrition. I'll say, this is how I lay out my nutrition, stuff like that, because I think a lot of coaches, maybe they're afraid to give out free knowledge, but I mean, if you're buying a program from me, I'm giving you a custom A to Z custom program built from the scratch. So I'm not worried about letting you see someone else's program, because like, okay, you can use their program, like, some other adaptation.
Well, I actually know somebody who's a coach told me, I don't give out my secrets.
I mean, I go into it trying to teach my clients, and some of my clients, they just want someone to hold their hand. They just want to get there to the end. And some of my clients, they ask me 50 questions a day, and I actually like those ones, because I'm like explaining to them why we're doing stuff, how we're doing stuff, why we're laying stuff out a certain way, how certain androgens work with them, why we're experimenting with, okay, you've never tried this before, let's go about it this way and we'll see how it does. Report back to me, and we'll kind of build a I'm starting to call it like a androgen passport, like their whatever, all their how they do with drugs, and keep like a log of it. So I actually really like those clients that like to learn. So yeah, and if they go on to the next coach and they become a coach, I mean, fine, then they can refer to me and say like, oh, I got taught how to do what I'm doing by Luke Carroll.
And it's important that, in my mind, that the client understands. I don't just tell them do this because I said so.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to understand why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because I want them to understand the process. So when they're giving me feedback, they're actually coming from a place of understanding. Like, I did X, Y, Z, and I feel this way. I look this way. This is what's happening. Now I have like good feedback that I can work on.
Not just, how do you feel? Good.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Thanks. So that's pretty much it.
I think we pretty much covered it.
Yep.
Last thing I'll just say, your health is the most important thing, because if you want to be in this long term, you got to monitor your health. And
absolutely,
if you just shoot for the stars and throw caution to the wind, yeah, you might do well for a minute, probably not, but you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out like your shooting star.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, your health really is. I mean, your body can take a lot. You can push, but there's a lot that it can't, you know, some people can take more than others also. So don't think just because Ronnie Coleman could do something and lay in an ice bath that you can too. I mean, you know, you might fuck yourself up and you might, you know, permanently be on dialysis
or die.
You might actually die. Yeah. So be careful with, you know, you can push hard. You can push hard as fuck, but just be mindful that you don't want to be reckless. I think that's the best way to put it. So, all right. Hit the website for the supplements.
Yeah, go to undergroundperformancegym.com. Don't forget you can hit up Luke or myself for training, consultations. It's all on the websites, or hit up on us, our Instagrams. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave comments. We'd like to hear your feedback so we can keep bringing you more content, and let us know what you want to hear about.
All right. Boom.